More than 75,000 New Yorkers currently live in city shelters. It's estimated at least another 3,000 sleep on the city streets. Joining me now is New York Commissioner of Social Services, Gary Jenkins, to talk about this. And Mr. Jenkins, good to see you this morning.
Thank you so much for having me, Dan.
So you recently announced that you're going to be stepping aside from this position, right? So that was really the headline. So let me begin with the timing of everything, because we just heard the numbers, the homeless and migrant crisis at a breaking point. Why, in the height of it, decide to step aside?
So, Dan, after 36 years as a public servant, serving the underprivileged and needy New Yorkers, our most vulnerable New Yorkers, I decided that it's time for me to retire from public government and just take some time to be with my family and just kind of just decompress and really look for the future. Like, what's next? So I'm going to take that time off, discuss it with my wife. I've been receiving various interview requests and just going to decide, what's best in the private sector for me.
And those in the media certainly had their ears perked when we heard about this announcement, right? Again, because of the timing. So I guess when you look at it in the middle of a crisis, was it completely your decision to do this, or were there conversations or requests to actually step aside?
Absolutely my decision. When Mayor Eric Adams asked me to come on board and be commissioner, it was a blessing, a privilege, and an honor to serve under the mayor. He's a compassionate mayor, a caring mayor. And I wanted to make sure that I was there to be part of him starting his administration. So again, this was my decision. No one, no pushing me out, no pushing me to the side.
Did they ask you to stay?
It was my decision. When I speak with the mayor, he was like, listen, you have to do what's best for you and your family. Okay. And again, after serving 36 years in government, it's time.
Yeah, and there certainly has a lot that you have accomplished, and I want to get into some of that in just a bit, but I do want to focus on some of the tough questions first, because you were appointed in January of last year. But halfway into the year, you were investigated by the city's Department of Investigation over your response to the homeless families staying overnight at a Bronx intake office, which actually violated the city's right to shelter law, right? I'm sure you know the story very well. It came to light from a staff member in your office. When you look at the totality of it, it felt messy in how it was handled. Looking back on it, was there anything you regret with how that played out?
Absolutely not. When the migrant crisis started coming in, we started receiving an influx of migrants. At that time, it was like 6,000. 5 months later, it ballooned to like 28,000 migrants that came into our system. I applaud our staff. We addressed it with rapid fire. We addressed it with care and compassion, and we continue to take care of those entering our system with care and compassion. And we said, listen, we made a mistake with 4 families, but out of the thousands of individuals that's in our system now, not one family reported to us that they had to sleep on the street when they presented themselves to us for shelter, for temporary shelter.
And then there was the face criticism when photos emerged of you actually partying on a yacht, again, while the crisis was swelling. Looking back on it again, now that you're stepping aside, in hindsight, was that the right move?
So that incident was a personal friend celebrating a personal friend's celebration. That's part of life. I wanted to make sure that I was there to show my appreciation for that milestone for that individual.
Okay, I do want to talk about the actual right to shelter law, right? Because we're the only city in America that has the right to shelter law. Do you agree with the law? Do you think that maybe it needs to change to kind of work with the numbers that are happening at the time?
So I'm not a lawyer,
right,
but I respect the law, and we're going to follow the law. And Mayor Adams has said it consistently and constantly that we are going to follow the law. In New York City, we have a right to shelter. Anyone that comes to our shelter system, we are obligated morally and legally to provide temporary shelter to individuals. And we do that every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me talk about the numbers, because you didn't have an easy task, right? The city's homeless population has risen to more than 77,000. That was the number we gave at the top, the most ever recorded. Why are the numbers just so high at this given point in time?
We had the migrant crisis. When we came into office, when the mayor was elected and he started his administration on January 1st, we had around 45,000. Now we have over 70,000. A third are migrants. And we are addressing them with care and compassion. We are not turning them away. We are embracing them. But again, this is a national problem.
Yeah.
This is not a New York City problem. And we need our federal partners and our state partners to step in and help us.
You're talking a lot about the migrant issue, right? But you kept a relatively low profile during the actual height of it all when it came to the Brooklyn cruise terminal and what was happening on Randall's Island. Were you part of the decision making in those tents, and where were you in terms of being in front of the cameras?
So I'm a public servant. I am behind the scenes. I want to get the work done. I want to be there for my team. The Randall's Island is a HERC that is outside of the Department of Homeless Services. H&H Health and Hospitals, they handle that population. We handle all of the folks that come to the Department of Homeless Services.
And so, an area of success for you and the mayor really has been removing some of the homeless from the subway system and getting them into shelters. How much work did you accomplish? How much is still left to do there?
So proud of the staff and our providers that are assisting. The mayor said this is going to be an administration where we no longer just walk by an individual who is homeless on the street or in our subway system. Glad to say and proud that we've put over 1,000 individuals into shelter. And that was just building trust and showing dignity and respect to those individuals and getting them off the street and off of the subway system. We also just launched our street to home pilot, which is working extremely well. We're working with Volunteers of America for our supportive housing units. And we're taking those individuals and we're bringing them inside so they can receive the supportive services they need within their own unit, or sometimes it's a shared unit.
Yeah, and still work to be done in the subways.
Absolutely. It's always going to be work to be done.
Yeah.
Always.
So you mentioned family time, but is there public service beyond this job?
I'm looking forward to joining the private sector. Mm-hmm. Again, received a lot of interview requests.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make the right decision. I'm going to speak with my wife, speak with my family, and then we're going to make the right decision at that time. But I'm going to take some time off, as I said earlier, and just decompress and reflect on my 36 years of service.
There you go. And when you make that decision, come on back, okay? We're going to talk to you again.
Welcome me back, and I will be here.
All right,
for sure.
Mr. Jenkins, good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you, too.
All right.